Hello, my friends. Today is a bonus episode with Mark Fisher, and we talk about two great topics. One, we talk about how to decide when to add a new service or product onto your existing services and products. And spoiler alert, the answer is rarely, but we'll talk more about it in this conversation. The second thing we talk about is how to balance managing your team's performance based on quantitative data, key metrics, goals, versus qualitative management techniques, how to make sure people are getting the job done and doing it right, but also making sure they understand that they are not just a number, how to balance those two approaches. We talk about both of those things in today's conversation. If that sounds fun for you, stick around and keep listening. The Business for Unicorns podcast is for fitness business owners who want actionable strategies to grow their business, take amazing care of their clients, and build a life and business they truly love. I'm your host, Michael Keeler, co-founder of Mark Fisher Fitness, and through Business for Unicorns, I'm a coach and consultant to industry-leading fitness studios around the world. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the podcast. This week is another bonus week with Mark Fisher. And so he doesn't need any introduction. Let's just get into it, my friends. Welcome, Mark Fisher. How the heck are you?
I am well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this another bonus episode. These have been really fun.
They have been.
Yeah, it's just, so we're talking about this shit anyway, so might as well record it and share it with the world.
Might as well.
And we're going to keep the same loosey-goosey format, which is like, let's just talk about what's on our mind, what's coming up.
Right.
And I'll get the party started because I had a great call with some of our Unicorn Society members today on a Zoom call. And one of them brought up this challenge that I know we have a ton of experience with, and I think is a really common thing that our listeners will resonate with, which is someone on our call today said they were getting all this feedback from clients that they wanted them to do other shit. They want to do other services. And the classic ones I hear all the time is, asking a training gym like MFF, can you guys do yoga? Can you guys offer massage? Have you ever thought about giving some space to a physical therapist? Have you ever thought about doing more TRX? Have you ever thought about bringing in sandbags? Have you ever thought about, right? It goes from totally other different modalities, to spinning to like, can you use different tools and equipment or try different ways of working? And we've gotten asked all of these over the years, and yes. I think it's really common. And then I'll start off with a spoiler alert. The mistake I see people make is giving into these requests on a regular basis.
Yes.
And so, with that spoiler alert in mind, you want to just talk a little bit about what our experience has been with these kinds of requests and how we try to handle it.
Yeah, we do our best to say no whenever we can. In fact, I assume and I hope if you're listening to this, you are already subscribed to our email newsletter. If you're not, you are foolish. You should go and do that. I work very hard on that. So every Thursday, in addition to our podcast, I write an email about what's on my mind. And as it happens, and I wonder if perhaps that's why it came up today with the Shy Lions, this was something I wrote about today. And my suggestion to really thin slice it is, if you are going to consider adding a new revenue stream or new service, you have to understand you're immediately going to add complexity to the business, and often in ways you can't intuit in advance. Therefore, I think the best way to handle that is to get hyper-specific for the terms of survival of your new revenue stream. And very specifically, how much top-line revenue does it need to make? What is the bottom-line profit you need to make? And in what time duration does that need to happen? And then if it doesn't, you must yank it. Because invariably you can get overwhelmed by the enthusiasm of clients, and in some cases your team that thinks of ideas, and you want to, particularly with your team, you want to support their ideas, you want to encourage them thinking of ways to really drive the business. It's what we want as owners and as entrepreneurs. And unfortunately, a lot of times you need to be Dr. No, because definitionally, neither of those two stakeholders are going to be thinking holistically about how that might impact the business. And to be clear, there is a time and place. You should consider adding new solutions, new revenue streams, people that already know, like, and trust you. If they're going to buy those things anyway, you do need to consider, does this make sense to sell it? But more often than you might think, the answer is no. And I know that is particularly challenging when you have a client that wants it. If there are, in some cases, something like personal training, which can make sense, that can be a very high amount of revenue for the business that you might need. But the second, third order consequences of that sometimes get pretty gnarly. So consider it, but do think big picture, because it's usually not as simple as you think. And
Yeah.
It's not as simple as you think.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the complexities we ran into is the complexity of staffing. So, MFF used to offer many things we don't offer anymore. The very first thing we offered and then didn't was massage. We had someone on our team who was a massage therapist, and we built all this infrastructure and space around offering massage and trying to sell massage. And really, when that person was no longer working for us, we didn't have massage anymore. And so we built all this infrastructure around a single person's skill set and expertise. And then later on, we did that again with some yoga. And when that person was no longer working with us, we're like, do we find another yoga person? I mean, we were only doing yoga because one of our trainers could do yoga.
Right.
And we wound up having to struggle trying to find a replacement for them, even though we didn't really even want to be doing yoga. And so, the complexity that gets added is this, especially if that thing you're offering, only one person can do.
Right.
And it's a recipe for inefficiency if you can't swap that person out. That person's sick or on vacation, you just don't do yoga those weeks, And so I think that's another big consideration. And to your point, I think doing your homework in advance of deciding to add an extra service or something like this is really important. And one piece of homework that I really recommend people doing is sending out a survey. Right? You might have 2 or 3 really loud, really influential clients that really want you to offer spinning. And you might think everyone wants spinning because those 2 or 3 clients are so persistent and they're so loud and they're so influential and they're so maybe charismatic and you love them so much that you're really compelled to offer spinning because you think everyone wants it.
Right.
But if you do a survey, you'll find out who really wants it. And if that survey includes, hey, if we charge X amount of dollars for spinning, do you still want to do it? You'll really find out how much is it worth investing in?
Yes.
Without that data, I'd be really nervous to add anything new.
And it's confusing because people not knowingly lie. They'll say, yes, I absolutely want to do that. And then, oh, actually, you know what? And the other challenge you run into, as you mentioned, is it's very hard to take things away once you've offered a thing. So another thing you might consider if you're going to do a new revenue stream and test it, and you want more data than the survey, which may or may not give you accurate data is what people will do. Maybe sell it for a limited time and do it as a one-off defined endpoint program and see what kind of traction you get. But the other piece of this I would acknowledge that is very difficult because it is a magnet that's going to draw you into making a poor decision is your clients and your team will not understand this. Unless you take them through to really explain it. And even then, if they want to do it, they are incentivized by their brain, by natural selection, to want what they want and see the reality that makes what they want be the thing that should happen. So it will be very difficult because you will have to withstand, in some cases, almost everyone not understanding why you're such a dum-dum and not doing this obvious thing you should obviously do. Even since the pandemic, it's been an ongoing topic of conversation at MFF. Do we add virtual semi-privates? Should we be pushing one-on-one as well? So my other default crude suggestion is sell 2 to 3 things. With an asterisk of, I think you can probably get away with selling more ancillary forms of revenue. That would be things like commissions from equipment, commissions from merch, a cold case, maybe some affiliate deals, supplements, et cetera. But if you're looking at the main things you're looking to offer, I think once you're moving past 2 to 3, it starts to get very, very tricky, both as you've mentioned on the fulfillment side and on the messaging, marketing, just explaining what you offer side.
Yeah, that's it. I found, and this was true when we did some experience sharing in our call today with the Unicorn Society group. So many of them had said, what our clients are really asking for is to have more options and more variety without paying more.
Yes. That does sound great.
Yeah.
That does sound great. I want that too.
I want more of that too. Give me more things, but I'm not going to pay more.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I think that's often what your research will yield, is that's really everyone's attitude. And in that case, it's definitely a no. If I have to pay more and find more people and add more complexity and add no more money, then it's a hell no. And that, again, to your point, that's going to be hard to explain unless you really walk your team or your clients through your thinking on that. They're like, why not? How hard is it for have someone to teach a yoga class? Well, let's talk about that. Right. Yeah. So I think it's a great topic. I'm glad it came up today because it's a mistake we made multiple times, and we'll make again in the future in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. What's been on your mind lately?
One thing that I wanted to share was a good lesson, a good learning in real time that happened over the past few weeks. And Kater, you know the story, so I'm not sharing it for your benefit, but there is an individual on our team that we love, that we've adored, that's been here for a few years. And to make a long story short, and I confirm this individual is okay to share this and ultimately has a happy ending, they have been an independent contractor since the time of the pandemic. And they ultimately recently put in their notice and said, it's time for me to leave. And one of the things that they shared, part of why they're leaving, something that caused them some frustration, is they were an independent contractor and it felt as if their boundaries were not being honored, that we were asking more than was appropriate to ask of an independent contractor. And ultimately, there were some dropped balls of communication on MFF part, two of which have potential takeaways. The one, which should have been obvious, but wasn't, and unfortunately, I don't know that we could have done this one differently, was there was just genuine miscommunication. I wasn't personally involved in the conversation with this person about this year, and we were operating under the assumption this individual was down to an independent contractor, down to be part-time, down to be full-time, was easy cheesy. They know we're ramping back up. They're ready to rock when we need them, but they get it. And in fact, what this individual meant to convey in the conversation she had was, I don't want to be full-time. I love doing just the part-time thing because this is not the thing that lights me absolutely on fire. And I need a little bit of bandwidth to look for other stuff. This just isn't my dream. And because of that, very much to their defense, part of what was happening was we were pushing for a higher level of rigor around tracking performance metrics, tracking numbers, which, to be fair, I think there is room for discussion about what you can ask an independent contractor to do, because certainly our ad agency has certain numbers they need to hit that they track that we would not continue working if they didn't hit. But the broader issue, which we take ownership of, is we were operating on the assumptions that this person is going to come back on part-time or full-time next week anyway. So let's just kind of move forward. And that led to this person, unfortunately, feeling a little bummed and feeling like, what? You're usually so good at this. Why are you ignoring what I want? And again, I'll keep saying, we've had a talk. Everything's absolutely great. This person is awesome. We're on great terms. The second piece, and I think this is maybe a takeaway that's very important. I was like, oh, could have done that better. One thing we continue to harp on, and I continue to believe is the most important thing that very few fitness businesses broadly, and certainly training gyms do, is know your numbers. Your sport is business. Track numbers. You have to track numbers. Everybody, all the performance, all the behaviors that are important to you, all the outcomes that are important to you need to be tracked on a very regular basis, weekly if possible, certainly monthly. Everyone on your team, you should have a sense of how they're doing based on their numbers. However, that's not the only thing that matters. And where we really dropped the ball with this individual is their sense was, and I can really understand based on the communications she got, some of which were from mine, which were not good, which said almost in as many terms like, if you don't hit these numbers, you don't get raises and you can't stay, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't like quite that harsh, but I can understand she was like, am I just a number? Are you just a number place? And the reality is, honestly, we are partly number place. Those things do matter. But because the rollout was sloppy, because my enthusiasm to make sure we were really running a business by the numbers instead of like a subjective sense of we're doing good, what I failed to do was re-emphasize. I failed to anticipate how that could be threatening for someone if suddenly they feel like their job performance is based on a few numbers, even if they're participating in the creation of those numbers. And to be fair, there's some people that don't want that type of work environment. And that is not, I think, someone generally you're going to probably want to have on your team for long, because that's not a recipe for great performance when someone's committed to being paid on time and effort versus outcomes. And I want to be clear, that's not what this person was even saying, right? This person was just saying, I felt like a number. And again, to their credit, was also saying, I don't burn with the light of 1,000 suns to do this. And so ultimately, I had an opportunity both to apologize profusely, first of all, for the first miscommunication. Second of all, because we didn't roll it out in a way that made her feel like a human. And it was a real learning lesson, a reminder for me. And I wanted to share it with you because if you do go down this rabbit hole, which we strongly recommend, of being very meticulous about creating key performance indicators for the whole business, for everyone on the team, which is one of the tenets of Traction. If anyone here is listening who runs the Traction system, if not, I highly recommend it, is that everybody on the team should have numbers. It is important for you to make sure that you communicate properly to the team that they're not just numbers. And of course, the hilarious thing was we Wheels, who runs our training team, and I had a number of conversations about not freaking out the trainers about when we rolled out, because the trainers for the first time ever have KPIs. And we were very thoughtful about making sure we don't want the trainers to think they're just numbers. We want them to know we're tracking this. Yes, this matters, but it's not the only thing. And then in this other element of the business, I completely blew it and didn't. And ultimately, it's all for the best. As I mentioned, we had a great conversation. I apologize profusely on those points. And now I have hopefully a good lesson that I will keep in mind as going forward, because we will continue to push the team to have objective metrics of performance. And we will simultaneously need to continue to assure them you are not just your numbers, that the way you show up for the values, your behaviors, those things matter too. Those things matter too.
Yeah, it's such a great lesson. I'm so glad you felt comfortable sharing, and she gave permission to put it on here. I think that's great, because I think the two things that stand out to me from this, and I'm kind of just repeating what you said, is the first one is just when you're managing through a change of someone's role, there's just no such thing as over communication. When you're managing through a change from someone to go full-time to part-time, or this role to that role, or part-time to independent contractor, all of those things, all those distinctions really matter. And there's just so much room for miscommunication there, from tasks to pay to schedule to, there's so many things. So I think a big tenet of managing through role changes is just communicate until you're both blue in the face by repeating what the new expectations are. You're not done yet.
Yes.
And that's it. And it's great that we can keep learning how meticulous we have to be, because I think it's one of those mountains with no top. We'll just kind of have to keep getting better at it, because every transition from every person is going to be a little different.
Totally.
There's not like any one formula. So I think that's a really great lesson to our listeners and viewers. And I think the second thing you said there was also really important, of just making sure that people understand that the quantitative stuff is so important, but like their qualitative experience and their value as humans on our team is not limited to the numbers.
Totally.
The numbers really fucking matter. And we're unrelenting about it, and you got to hit them, and everyone's got to perform in a way that improves the business. And we also have to understand that humans are humans, and they need to have value that is not just a number. And so seeing them like that has always been a priority for us. And this person knew that. And it's just making sure that that's we're putting both of those feet forward at the same time.
100%. And then I think
so hard.
And certainly that was part of why the person was bummed, because they're like, wait, what? It felt kind of so out of character for them. And it's interesting because I recently read Simon Sinek's Infinite Game, which I thought was just okay. And I thought perhaps it was just okay because I don't think it was written for me. I don't think there were things in there I was like, wait, you mean business should be about more than just quarterly gains? It should be more than just about a cancerous version of capitalism that destroys the planet and society? Okay, I got it. However, he's not writing it for me. He's writing it to get a big 6-figure consulting contract at a Fortune 500 company that doesn't understand that. So this is another micro takeaway, is when you're consuming information about business, you have to contextualize it and understand the era it was written in, who the author is, and what audience they're writing for. So that getting on the soapbox and railing against the inhumanizing effects of capitalism is probably a very important message to infiltrate Fortune 500 companies that are already doing all the KPIs and maybe do err on the side of turning people into just numbers. Conversely, a lot of the people that we work with, frankly, that have big hearts, that don't have any numbers, that are afraid of anybody being mad at them, that don't understand how to really run a business in a rigorous, data-oriented way, I think run the risk of justifying what, frankly, we probably did to fault in the beginning of not having as much in the way of standards and probably giving too much freedom and not really understanding what was going on in the business from a metrics perspective. So I'm not saying you shouldn't read the book, but I do, again, I really want to caution you, you need to contextualize if that information is relevant to you, because I think part of why I was like so disappointed perhaps was not disappointed, I'm so harsh on this book, but I do feel, speaking with candor and kindness, that it felt like I had read the book before. I was like, I got this. I understand Simon Sinek's shtick, and it's a great shtick, and a lot of people really, really need to read it. And at this point in my life and career, I found that I have probably overemphasized that, and that has also done damage to the mission and the people and the values when you overemphasize that.
Totally. Yeah, and I think it's a great takeaway, is just to remember the context in which with which anyone's making content, whether it's a book or this podcast or anything that you're reading and consuming. You have to recognize there's a context to which they're making it, and all the lessons might not apply to you. But I think also, to your point, I think a lot of the business owners and training gym owners that we talk to, their issue is not that they depersonalize their space by making everyone a number.
Right.
The issue that I hear from many of them, not many of them, but the ones that I see run into a similar but different problem is that they make it everything, it's my way or the highway, right? It's like,
Right.
I'm the king of the castle, you do it my way, and there's only one way, and it's mine.
Right.
And
Also not great.
do it that way or
Not a
not.
good way to
It's
go.
also dehumanizing.
Yes. Yeah. Very
And
good
so-
point. Very good
And I
point.
see that one differently. And frankly, there's some people who we know and love in this industry who've been preaching that message for a long time.
Right.
So- And so some people who really believe that it should be that way.
It is a way you could do it.
It is a choice. Anyway, I know we're short on time today, so we want to wrap this one up. But thanks to this was a fun conversation. Two kind of random, but I think really useful topics to talk about. So listeners, I hope you found this useful. As a reminder, at the end of these bonuses, I'd like to remind you to reach out to us. We're here to help. We're here to talk to you. You can email us at Michael and Mark at businessforunicorns.com. Follow us on the Instagrams, DM
Yes.
us, slide into those DMs. We're here to help. Anything else you want to finish with, my friend?
No, go and subscribe to all the things, to the emails, to the
Yeah.
YouTubes, the things.
Yeah, check out Fisher's great emails every Thursday. It's fantastic content. And I know not everyone loves email these days, but this is the thing you should look for in your inbox. This is the thing you should prioritize because it's great, fantastic content. So
I mean, we get great open rates. That's all I'm saying.
yeah,
I don't want to brag, but
we don't want to brag, but our open rates are pretty great. Awesome. Well, thanks, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your week. Hey, friends, before you go, just one more thing. If you enjoy this podcast, you get value out of it, you enjoy listening, please share this podcast, comment below. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Please share it with friends and family. We don't spend any money on marketing or advertising. And so the only way people find out about this podcast is from you. So please do everything you can to share it with friends and fellow colleagues in the fitness industry. We love making it, and we want to keep doing it for a long, long time. So I appreciate your support. Go have a kick-ass day. Bye.